Hello, happy May. Welcome to WBC Faster Together, the LinkedIn Live series of Women Business Collaborative. I'm Gwen Young, CEO of WBC, and happy Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month from all of us at Women Business Collaborative. And today, I'm excited to host two amazing women leaders, our Senior Director of Champion Relations, Anjali Varma, and Rakhi Agarwal, the Global Head of Supplier Diversity and Risk at Sanofi. WBC is an unprecedented alliance of over 80 women business organizations and hundreds of business leaders, building a movement to create equal position, pay, and power for all women in business. Through collaboration, advocacy, action, and accountability, we are mobilizing thousands to create momentum and accelerate the pace of change. We live our commitment to DEI, and members of our staff, senior leadership, board of directors, and our advisory council include more than 34% people of color. Please check the chat for our 9 action initiatives through which we aim to accelerate change, and join our movement at wbcollaborative.org. Each week in this series, we offer different ways to advocate change and accelerate impact by presenting data, research, and best practices, by lifting up the power of women's voices for change, and by showing the importance of cross-generational collaboration and the allyship of men in the movement. Today, we want to talk about leadership and leadership for women of color, women in business working together through networks, allyship, mentorship, sponsorship, supplier diversity, and how to support and build women entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses. So I'm going to start with you, Anjali, but I want to talk to both of you. Let's talk a bit about your engagement with Women Business Collaborative. Why are you here? How are you engaged? And what does this look like for you?
Thanks, Gwen. So excited to be here and to be part of the WBC community a couple months in now. And really my role is to work with our advisory council and individuals and have been so excited to be a part of this. And one of the reasons that I love being a part of WBC is because there are so many different voices that come to the table and so many different types of individuals and partners that are all coming to collaborate towards the advancement of women leaders, a topic that I personally am very passionate about.
Rakhi, want to talk about your engagement with Women Business Collaborative and why you're here? We're doing a lot of work together, so I'd love to hear
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Gwen, for this opportunity. I'm so happy and excited to be here and share about Sanofi and our commitment as well. So, my name is Rakhi Agarwal, Head of Global Supply Diversity for Sanofi. What that means is it's my goal to make sure that we spend a portion of our corporate spend with diverse and minority and women owned businesses across the globe and make our supply chain more agile and innovative. So that's my job. And the reason why I am working with WBC and partnering with you and happy to support the organization as well because I see WBC as a force that is creating a massive movement to create a big, significant positive impact to close the two major important gaps that are so in our faces in today's world, in our business world, right? Like gender parity and equal pay, right? Those are two very important topics. And WBC is doing great work in this space. And that's why I am committed to it. And I give all might to it and support you guys in every way possible.
So, one of our action initiatives focus on sort of women entrepreneurs and how to make sure they have access to capital. So one way is through that supplier diversity. And Sanofi's commitment, from the portion is fantastic. Has that commitment changed? Does it look different now than it looked 5 years ago? Are we making progress in ensuring minority and women-owned businesses have access to supply chains, capital, and sort of, building relationships with other businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. About 10, 15 years ago, it was a no concept. Then a movement started and, things started to get better. But still, we had a lot of work to do and a lot to learn. But today, things have definitely changed. And in the last 5 years, there is access for women-owned businesses. People are, understanding the importance, why it is important to work with women-owned businesses across, not just only in the United States, but also globally, right? And so a lot of initiatives are happening, and supply chains are being intentional in making sure that when they have business opportunities, if they can work with a business that is owned by women, why not, right? Because they can bring the agility, they can bring this cost savings, they can bring the innovation, which are different than typical myths that people have in supply chain industry, that, oh, working with women on business is not going to be effective or innovative, or cost of, the savings won't be there. But those are not true, and things have definitely changed. And especially from Sanofi's perspective, last year, our CEO made a public commitment to double our women owned business spend. And it is my extreme pleasure to say that we are more than on track. Our run rate is much more than what we expected. The goal was to achieve 1.5 billion in small and diverse businesses by 2025, and to also double the women-owned business spend by 2025. But I'm hoping and keeping my fingers crossed that we'll be able to cross that goal and achieve it, I want to say at the end of this year, but if not, at least next year.
I love it. It's go bold, and when you mentioned that, I think that's fantastic, and I think we should all applaud the work and keep the fingers crossed and make that commitment, the intentionality piece of it.
Yes.
And I want to pick up on kind of two pieces, Rocky, that you brought up. You brought about kind of the movement, and we talk a lot about networks. Angela, you want to talk a bit about sort of the importance of networks, kind of overall, and how the advisory council and the work we're doing to help not only just work with partner organizations that have networks, but build those networks, and how important that is to advancing diversity.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that is kind of one of the main tenets of our advisory council at WBC. And I think the importance is this idea of coming together and learning best practices and amplifying each other's voices. So, I think there's no point in reinventing the wheel. And so when you are networking, it's this opportunity to learn what others have been doing successfully, maybe some of the failures that have occurred as well. And so when we bring particularly individuals from different companies together and different partners and organizations together, it's the opportunity to really learn what has worked in the workforce and maybe where there are opportunities for growth. And I think that's the same at the individual level when you think about kind of networks and the power of networks within your own organization. Kind of the idea of being able to mentor and learn best practices and lean on one another, and really build the sense of community, which I know we really focus a lot on at WBC. And the power of numbers and the power of all of us kind of coming together to learn best practices.
I love that. And so, as we do that, we've talked about mentorship. I know we talk a lot about sponsorship and allyship. It is Asian American Pacific Islander Month. What's the latest state of play with DEI? What is this looking like for sort of Asian American Pacific Islander women? How are we doing in this space as to really being, women as allies of all women, men as allies, but really moving the needle? I know, Anjali, you might have some thoughts on kind of what the state of play looks like.
Yes. So I think that we have done some work, but there's a lot more work to be done. So, looking at, there was a 2022 McKinsey report that kind of showed that Asian Americans are heavily represented in corporate jobs. However, their presence drops significantly when you look at board and management positions. So it drops by like 80%. So I think, for Asian Americans specifically, and obviously we need to kind of highlight the fact that Asian Americans is even a very broad subset of people, right? But that we're seeing representation at all levels of corporate, but it really does drop when we're looking at kind of that C-suite and the board. So what can we do about that? And why is that occurring? Are some of the questions I think that companies need to ask themselves.
Rakhi, what are you saying? Yeah.
I mean, it's true. It's sad, but it's true, right? And I think stereotypes play a big role in that. Especially when you think about when you meet people, the first thing is your brain is very quick to be judgmental. You make a judgment right the moment you meet with them, irrespective of their qualifications, their capabilities. You just make up something in your head by looking at them, either because of their how they look, where do you think they come from, and that is the cultural stereotyping that plays a very big role in not being supportive of the Asian and Asian women, especially to kind of, take the leap or, climb the corporate ladder, right? And that's that's why, and I read in a few reports as well, similar to what Anjali said, the data was that only 1.5% of corporate officer positions were held by Asians or Asian women's, right? Which is like a very significant, like a very tiny, minute number. And that is a situation that we have to work together to change.
And I would just add, Gwen, there's this concept of the double bind that is, it really impacts all women leaders. So it's this idea of, leaders needing to be aggressive and assertive, but the conflict that women are supposed to be in the box of more communal and nurturing. And that's the double bind that I think all women face when they are trying to rise through the ranks and become leaders in organizations. However, for Asian Americans specifically, we often see that that is even more amplified because there are these stereotypes around Asian women, expecting to be more meek and more communal and maybe a little bit more toned down. And so there is likely this idea kind of playing out, whether people admit it or not. We're probably seeing that as maybe one of the increased barriers for this population when we're looking at kind of the C-suite and upper management.
And as we think through that, a lot of this is cultural change, as we know, right? It's
Yeah.
either people's expectations, it's how people are doing this. What can we do to either, have the conversation in the workspace? What can people do to be sort of better allies and more cognizant of that so that we can sort of shift the cultures, right? And how can we start having those conversations or being accountable or helping to sort of make that cultural shift to sort of change that perception and expectations?
I mean, I think personally that we do a lot of training in our corporate world. We do a lot of cultural and sensitivity training, but I think we miss a very big important piece of it. It's great to give that the cultural sensitivity training to say, hey, this is how Asians are brought up, or this is how Americans are brought up, or this is how this other gender, race, or culture or region in different part of the world, this is how they think, this is how they react. That is all great and good to know, but they should not be taught as stereotypes, right? Because that's where the issue becomes. Because these, what an individual is made up of is human emotions, human qualities that make them their own. So just because I am an Asian woman doesn't mean that I'm not capable to take tough decisions or be direct or make a really strong tough call on a decisions that I have to. I am absolutely capable of doing that. But then I'm also capable of respecting the position and the authority of other people who are around me as well. So that balance is what they need to see, that yes, just because someone is born in a certain culture doesn't mean or doesn't make them less capable of it. That tweaking needs to be done in those training, and the training needs to be imparted with that in message in mind, not just like, okay, this is a cultural sensitivity training,
Yeah.
this is how different set of people react.
Yeah. And then I think kind of to what we were talking about earlier, I think a lot of organizations are doing this, having ERG groups and networks that are specific to different populations, I think is helpful so that people have their own kind of network that they can discuss challenges with and also brainstorm how to have solutions. But then having conversations across the board. And, what we find is even, bringing men to the conversation and really the whole organization being on board and understanding, not just checking the box of hiring X amount of people or checking the box of having training, but really having these deep conversations about what are the systemic issues and or organizational issues that might be leading to some of these challenges for specific women versus not. And I think having everybody in the room and having those conversations is critical as well.
And I notice we're having a lot of conversations, kind of the third part of that triad as well, is kind of the leadership style and what we expect of leadership to be. There's a lot of conversations around empathetic leadership right now, or is the way we rose in the ranks the way that has to be, right? And I expression I heard yesterday, parity is more than numbers, it's about power, but it's about what do we expect? There's been studies that say all of the leadership traits objectively women hold. Right. But there's a perception that you have to be a certain way as a leader. So I think it's kind of the organizational, as you said, not the stereotype, but understanding, and then kind of what the leadership style is that we're looking for and asking for. And that kind of leads us nice and kind of, we always end these LinkedIn lives with that sort of call to action, like what can a company do? What can an organization do? What can we do to really drive that change so that we can ensure diversity, across the business landscape from leadership through the pipeline. And I'm going to start with you, Angela. I'm going to put you on the spot and start with you.
I mean, I think it's kind of what I just was saying about communication and making sure those lines of communication are open. And I think it's also education around who all these different groups are and the challenges that they are facing and what we can do to kind of overcome those challenges as well.
Communications. Rakhi.
Yes, my call to action would be to every senior leader that is out there listening to this. They need to make a mental note of the women in their leadership, in their team, in their organization, and have a one-on-one discussion with them about their capabilities, their skill set, and what is their career aspiration. And if they can pick one that they believe in, has the capabilities, and I would ask them to go all out and support them, be their mentor, be their sponsor. And like this, if each one of the leaders can at least support one woman and help them grow, help them achieve, the level of career that they are aspiring for, open doors for them, coach them, then imagine totally, like you said, the power is in, us being together, the immense amount of significant change that we can bring. That would be fabulous if we can do that. That would be my call to action.
I love that. I like that concrete, like sort of very doable, and like take just one. And as Angela said, have a communication and really continue the conversations we're having, right? Because it's sort of a step by step and it starts with everybody engaging, right? Thank you, Rakhi and Angela. Thank you for your insights today. And we look forward to our continued work together on the Advisory Council and our partnership with Sanofi to increase the number of women on boards, in the C-suite and CEO, and to continue to publicize our list of latest data and insights. But unfortunately, that is all we have time for today. So I invite you to wbcollaborative.org to learn more about WBC's initiatives to increase women in the C-suite and boardroom, to address the underrepresentation of women in access to capital, entrepreneurs in the technology industry, and to advance a pipeline of women leaders that are going to bring gender and pay parity, diversity, equity, and inclusion to the business landscape. Join us weekly to keep up to date on our progress, our guests, and the movement for gender parity in business. And follow us on social media at WB Collaborative on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn.